Hi, welcome to Asian American Life. I'm Ernabel Demillo. This month, we're at the Brooklyn Botanic Garden where they house one of the most extensive indoor Asian gardens in the world. Let's take a look. Next to Japan, the CV Star Bonsai Museum has the oldest and largest collection of 350 bonsais in the United States. Step into the tropical pavilion and you'll be transported to the lush rainforest of Southeast Asia. In honor of Asian Pacific Heritage Month, we take a look at 4 fascinating leaders in entertainment, business, science, and human rights. Here's more. From Avon's corporate boardroom to Grameen's fight against poverty, Kyung Yoon sits down with CEO Andrea Jung. Paul Lin investigates the real CSI. And Minnie Roh has an exclusive report on World War II war crimes and sexual violence against women who are known as comfort women. We start our show with one of the most popular children's entertainers on television. If you have a child between the ages of 1 and 6, you'll probably recognize him. That's because he has set up shop on one of the most popular streets in America.
Oh, hello, and welcome to another peaceful day here on Sesame Street.
For 16 seasons, Alan Muraoka has been running one of the most iconic shops on television, Mr. Hooper's store on Sesame Street. We visit Alan as he prepares to start shooting his 17th season with the show. But before we sit down for the interview, he quizzes me.
Do you know who this is?
Yeah, Abby Kadabi.
No.
Oh, no.
We don't negate. We just say, try again.
Try again. And how did you end up in this magical place?
Well, and this
No, the most famous street in the world.
Absolutely. So back in 1997, I was doing the revival of King and I, and then I got a call from my agent saying, hey, they're looking for somebody to take over Hooper's store for the 30th season. They want to change things up a little bit.
Alan made history. He became the first Asian American cast member of Sesame Street.
I grew up with the show. I'm of that generation that I was a latchkey kid, and so I watched it growing home, with eating my Oreos.
And drinking your Tang.
Absolutely. Oh, yes, Tang. My very first day on set, the actress who plays Susan asked me how old I was, and I told her, and she said, I raised you, come here. And she gave me a huge hug, and it was absolutely true. I had grown up with her and Bob, and Maria on my television set for years, so it did feel like home for me.
Alan grew up in Southern California, 4th-generation Japanese American, with stars in his eyes. He started performing in middle school, and the stage became his second home. His big break came after a stint performing on a cruise ship after college.
I just got off a cruise ship. I had worked for a year and a half to save money to move to New York. There was a call for a new musical that was coming to New York. And I was like, oh, all right. And they specifically wanted an Asian American guy. And I've never done this before, but I sent my picture and resume to the theater that was producing it. And I was like, I am the guy that you want for this role. on a little Post-it. I was like, I would never have done that before in my life. And, and ultimately I got the part. So I guess they listened to that little Post-it note.
He starred in 6 Broadway shows since moving to New York in 1987. Most notably, he played the engineer in Miss Saigon. He was in the last revival of The King and I, and he starred in Stephen Sondheim's Pacific Overtures. Theater is his first love. Along with performing on stage, he directed several shows, including shows for nonprofits like the East-West Players. Alan is a familiar face in the Asian American community, always lending a helping hand. In fact,
you and I have co-hosted events throughout, I won't say how long.
Yeah, don't say that. Please don't reveal
that.
Yes,
and I love it, and I do love it.
But it is his role as Alan the Grocer that has opened the doors to incredible opportunities. He performed at the White House, in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and has performed with some of his favorite celebrities. When did it hit you that you were part of this iconic show?
Oh, it always surprises me when people, when people come up to me. I remember this was a few seasons ago, Sheryl Crow was on the show. And we're sitting there, I'm like, oh, we got to get to meet Sheryl Crow. And we walk up to each other, and she goes, I am so excited to meet you. And I was like, and I just sat there, I was like, what? This is not how it's supposed to go. I'm excited to meet you.
It's been an incredible run for Alan, and it continues with Sesame Street. More acting and directing, and he has a book coming out soon.
If you could talk to your younger self now, that junior high school kid with these big dreams, what would you say?
What would I say? You're going to have a pretty good life. So, it's coming. So just wait for it. Calm down. Just calm down and wait for it, because it's going to be pretty fun.
Thank goodness you didn't calm down, though.
That's true.
I think he is saying, welcome to Sesame Street.
I'm Ernabel Demillo for Asian American Life.
I'm Kyung Yoon, and coming up, we'll meet Andrea Jung, a trailblazer for women's economic empowerment.
If you give a woman a hand up rather than a handout, there's sustainable, lasting society improvement. And I think that's been proven, again, time and time again.
Andrea Jung, the CEO of Grameen America, is determined to break the cycle of poverty for women in the U.S. who can't get access to capital because they're considered a poor credit risk.
It's cyclical. They can't establish a pattern of credit and get a FICO credit score that allows them to get a credit card.
Jung believes a small loan can be the life-transforming boost a woman needs to pull herself out of poverty.
What a woman can do with a $1,500 loan continues to astound me every single time I meet one of our borrowers.
Is that the average size of a loan?
That's the first size loan. The average size loan is about $2,300.
Grameen was founded in Bangladesh in 1983 by Nobel Prize winner Muhammad Yunus to help women who were too poor to qualify for traditional bank loans. It was a revolutionary idea to extend credit to illiterate women to help them buy a sewing machine or some bamboo to start a basket weaving business and transform them into entrepreneurs.
Grameen America program is the fastest growing microfinance organization in the United States, and the very first branch opened in Jackson Heights, Queens, right here in our backyard. So our measure of what does good look like is that we give them that access, we open a bank account for them, we help them establish that credit score, and that then the bigger impacts, the impact on their earnings, what's the income boost, are they able to in fact create a job? 1 out of 5 Grameen America members, have people working for them.
For many years, Andrea Jung was known more for makeup than microloans. As the CEO of Avon, a position she held from 1999 to 2012, she was one of very few women and Asian American CEOs of a Fortune 500 company.
Do you see the transition from being the head of Avon to Grameen America as a radical shift?
Avon was really founded on the idea that if women could have some of their own money, make their own individual incomes, they could be empowered.
Avon calling at your door. Avon calling.
So if you fast forward all the way to Muhammad Yunus and his founding belief that women in dire poverty who were just given a tiny bit of capital, where they had no access to loans, would not only pay that loan back, tiny amounts, but in fact beginning to work themselves out of poverty. Grameen is very much of a social business. It's a sustainable business.
I am proud to present the 2015 Philanthropy Award to Andrea Jung.
In March, Andrea Jung was honored by the United Way of New York City, an organization that is also at the forefront of fighting poverty and creating opportunities for New Yorkers.
I've had the opportunity to see thousands of women across the United States, and here we are in the richest nation, and we look at the richest city here in the richest nation, and the income inequality and the people who do not have access, whether it's to capital or to education, is truly daunting, and I know that's why every one of us is in this room today.
Why is this mission so important to you personally?
I'm a proud New Yorker. I have lived here, my children have grown up here, I've worked here. I think it's hard to believe in 2015 that there is still so much need. And I think it takes organizations like the United Way of New York City, like Grameen America. Right here in New York City, we've served over 26,000 women right here in the boroughs.
A child of Chinese immigrants, Andrea Jung says that she was raised to be proud of her heritage.
I remember being in 4th grade and going to a pulp plant and running home and saying, they make paper here. Can you believe they make paper? And my father would say, paper was invented in China.
How has being Asian American influenced you as a leader?
You don't have to change who you are. You don't have to kind of walk away from that part of your heritage, but you need to be more assertive. So I did learn, and it took some time, but it's really been quite helpful, and I don't think I've lost the essence of what I'm proud of in terms of being Chinese.
And Andrea Jung has plans to expand the work and impact of Grameen America across the United States to create even more opportunities for women and families. I'm Kyung Yoon for Asian American Life.
I'm Paul Lin in New Haven, Connecticut, inspiring and training the next generation of crime scene investigators. It's happening right here at the Henry C. Lee Institute of Forensic Science, named after the legendary Dr. Henry Lee.
I was a police officer before. As a police officer, we use sixth sense. I walk on the street, I can spot this is a good guy, that's a bad guy, so I already form my opinion. As a scientist, I have to get rid of this, totally use logic and reasoning.
As he's done for 4 decades, becoming the go-to forensic scientist for analysis and advice in so many high-profile, controversial, and unsolved cases.
From JFK to OJ Simpson, Jumping Ramsey, Elizabeth Smart, Clinton, Whitewater investigation.
Almost every famous case from 1980 to 2010, including Connecticut's infamous wood chipper murder. Police suspected a man of killing his wife but couldn't find the body. A receipt for a wood chipper rental and an eyewitness account at a lake put investigators on the trail. Dr. Lee used logic analysis to find evidence.
We melt the snow inch by inch. We found 56 little bone chips. We found 2,260 human hairs in 18 bundles.
The wood chipper case put Dr. Lee and his methods into the international spotlight. He even had his own true crime show on Court TV.
I can feel his feeling, Frankie's voice. One of his men was killed.
When Dr. Lee started out, he could count on one hand the number of Asians practicing forensics in the U.S. Now, the field is much more diverse, thanks in part to his visibility and advocacy.
Early days, most of the forensic scientists in the country is male, Caucasian. I start hiring female scientists. I start hiring minority scientists.
Born in China and raised by his mother in Taiwan, one of 13 kids, Henry Lee attended police school, got assigned to Taipei's police department, and rose to the rank of captain. He found that investigations often resulted in forced confessions. Henry believed there had to be a better way.
Besides interrogation or confession in any other scientific way, you can find out the truth of the case. That's why I decided to come to the United States.
So in the mid-1960s, Henry came to New York with his family. He would earn a bachelor's degree from John Jay in forensics, as well as a master's and a PhD in biochemistry from NYU. When the University of New Haven asked him in 1975 to create its forensics program, he accepted, soon afterwards offering consulting services that would win cases.
When I first tried to offer our services to law enforcement and prosecutor, they rejected. But the public defender's office took it. So after quite a few cases, the prosecutor realized how important our advice.
So important for Connecticut that Dr. Lee got recruited by the state to start a forensics lab, the first space a converted bathroom in a state police barracks. By 1979, then-Governor Grasso appointed Dr. Lee as the state's first chief forensic scientist. It took 3 more governors to approve what Dr. Lee would eventually build out, a state-of-the-art crime laboratory stretching over 74,000 square feet.
Can you see that? Now that tells me the voltage trajectory.
Whatever the facilities or technology, it still comes down to the basics, recognizing physical evidence at the crime scene and handling it properly, both on-site and at the lab. It's game-changing. Dr. Lee says, consider how the OJ Simpson trial could have turned out if evidence had been properly collected and handled. In that case, Dr. Lee testified for the defense.
Nicole Simpson's arm have a 3 bloody finger mark, which they never collected. That's probably the most crucial evidence.
Beyond crimes in the news, Dr. Lee has helped crack many thousands of other cases around the world. No wonder scientists and law enforcement officers seek the training he and his institute provide.
Many of the people working in the laboratory all have their PhD. They're good scientists, but they lack of a few or practical experience. Many good detectives, they have practical experience, but lack of scientific knowledge. So Institute of Forensic Science basically bridged them together.
Today, police from 59 countries come to Connecticut to learn about forensics. They can study DNA, ballistics, and more. And Dr. Lee, almost 80 years old now, still has plenty of cold cases to work on. He also has so much more to share with young scientists. Dr. Lee sees more room for growth for Asian American forensic scientists, but he says that forensic science also can be the foundation for those interested in law school, medical school, and research and development. I'm Paul Lin for Asian American Life.
During World War II, human trafficking and sexual slavery allegedly committed by the Japanese military may seem like something straight out of a history book. However, it is still a painful reality for 53 Korean women who say they are living proof that these war crimes did exist. 70 years later, these women are still trying to right this wrong, and students at one CUNY college are doing their part to give voice to these women before their stories die along with them. Korea in the late 1930s. The country was under Japanese occupational rule, one of several pawns captured in the net of the Japanese imperialist regime in its quest to dominate the region. It was a dark time in the history of this country, but even darker yet because of the testimony from these women who say they were forced to serve as sex slaves, also known as comfort women, for the Japanese army.
안녕하세요, 할머님. 16살 정도 됐어요.
Via Skype from their residence in South Korea, called 나눔의 집, or House of Sharing, I spoke to two women who, despite their advanced age, tell with great clarity how they were taken against their will.
I kicked my feet and said, I'm not going.
And shipped off to unknown destinations and fate.
There were about 10 of us. We went on a train, and then I have no idea where they went.
In 1943, Hee-Nam was 16 years old. She says as a young girl, she had heard horror stories about girls being snatched off the side of the road, but never dreamed it would happen to her. Her mother even arranged a marriage with a stranger, thinking that would protect her. But Yu ended up in the hands of the Japanese.
Everyone was crying, other than to ask each other, who are you? Where are you from? We couldn't even talk to each other. We were so scared.
At first, she thought she was going to work at a factory as part of the Japanese war effort. Instead, Yu ended up at a so-called comfort station, or brothel, in Shimonoseki, a coastal town in the south of Japan.
There were a lot of officers who came. The hardest thing for me was when I had to have sexual relations with them. It was hard.
Lee Ok-sun was 15 years old when she says two men accosted her as she was returning home after running an errand and threw her into the back of a truck.
One took my hands, the other my feet. and throw me up. I was thrown up high, and I fell hard. I was startled, of course, but it hurt so much, so I screamed and cried.
Lee remembers boarding a cargo train and after a long night's journey, ended up in Yanbian, China. For a few days, she says she cleared a field at an abandoned airport. But when she kept demanding to go home, she says she was sent to a comfort station in downtown Yanbian, where she was forced to have sex multiple times a day with soldiers.
In one day, we have to serve 40, 50 soldiers. Think about it. How many hours are in a day? How would we take care of 40, 50 people? It would have been better to die. They took young kids, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. What do those children know? These are just babies. And now they ask us to do this. It was so frightening.
And punishment was swift and brutal for those who didn't follow the rules.
Those girls refused to entertain the soldiers and wouldn't listen. They would line them up and slash them open with a knife. What else but blood would come out? Then the soldiers would just throw them aside. How torturous was our life that we would commit suicide. People jumped from mountains, cut their necks. I don't call it a comfort station. It was a slaughterhouse where they murdered people.
Historians estimate there were about 2,000 comfort stations across Asia and up to 200,000 comfort women, the bulk of them Chinese and Korean, but there were also Burmese, Indonesian, Filipino, even Dutch and Australian women. Pregnancy and venereal disease were commonplace. Documents and testimony by former soldiers suggest that the Japanese military was involved in this large-scale sex slavery, perversely as a way to prevent rape crimes and venereal disease during the troops' deployment. The Japanese government has continued to deny any coercion, saying these women voluntarily entered into prostitution due to poverty.
Those Japanese are terrible people. They have no compassion. They say this is a lie. How could I be lying when they made us do horrible and shameful things? Just tell the truth. Say it was in the past. Our ancestors did it.
In the early 1990s, over 230 Korean women registered with the South Korean government as former comfort women. Today, just 53 remain. In 1993, the Japanese Chief Cabinet Secretary Yohei Kono issued an apology expressing remorse, and survivors did receive monetary compensation. However, the Kono statement remains controversial. The South Korean government, along with the victims, continues to press for an official apology. To this day, these women take turns at a weekly protest at the Japanese embassy in Seoul, unwavering in their demand that the government admits wrongdoing. On the other side of the world, at CUNY's Queensborough Community College in New York, historian Dr. Jimin Kim is doing her part to help these women press their agenda.
With the awareness of comfort women issue, I think that can be pressure on Japanese government and ultimately the official apology for the survivors.
Dr. Kim offers a 12-week internship program where students learn about the history of the region and the alleged war crimes.
Majority of the students didn't know about comfort women at all. They barely knew where Korea is.
But when the students heard for the first time the survivors tell their stories in this documentary,
A few were visibly distraught.
It's difficult to put in words because I have cousins who's that young, and if they ever went through that, I don't know what I would do to myself, how I react. Like right now you can tell I'm like...
Those students are very young and much potential. So many former students said that they changed their perspectives on war crimes and human rights after this program. And I think it has much potential to change the world.
The highlight of the internship is this Skype session with survivors. Based on these interviews, the students create websites, poems, and artwork, which are temporarily displayed at the Kupferberg Holocaust Center on campus. The executive director says he has plans to make this a permanent exhibit.
We are imagining it to be based largely on stories at this point. So the stories, the life stories, the testimony of the victims, also to make it relevant through showing the women as they live today and how it informs and ultimately, ideally, opens their eyes to the connections between various groups and the dangers of allowing hatred and prejudice to grow unchecked.
After the Japanese Empire was defeated at the conclusion of World War II in 1945, the comfort stations were abandoned. Reportedly, many of the women were killed. Others made their way back to their homeland. Lee decided to stay in China.
Why didn't I ever go looking for my family? I had a sign on my forehead that said, "Comfort woman." How could I possibly go with that shame?
Yu never saw her family again either. She married, had 5 children, and kept her secret hidden from everyone until she was one of those who registered as a former comfort woman. Her daughters have not spoken to her since.
They said, "How did this happen? We have to all take medicine and die together." I still regret it. Why didn't I just die by keeping my silence? I spoke out, and now my children wouldn't talk to me.
Now, Lee and Yu live with other survivors at Nanumijib, or House of Sharing, which is both a museum and residence for former comfort women. Yu has cancer. Lee has medical issues stemming from her traumatic past. Both know they do not have much longer to live. Their one wish is to die knowing that their dignity has been restored, if not for themselves, for the memory of those who went before them. To this day, textbooks in Japan make no mention of comfort women, which many have denounced, calling it revisionist history. I'm Minnie Roh for Asian American Life. Next month, we talk to fashion icons and insiders about what's happening in the fashion industry. Also, be sure to visit the CV Star Bonsai Museum and Tropical Pavilion and the outdoor garden here at the Brooklyn Botanic Garden. I'm Ernabel Demillo. We'll see you next time on Asian American Life.